Hello, Mackie here, and welcome back to another edition of 60 Super Bowls in 60 Days. We are 5 weeks away from Super Bowl 60, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll tell you one, man, we are closer and closer to see which 20, 12 teams, 14 teams, 14 teams, which 14 teams ever grace the Lombardi Trophy. Of course, this week is probably playoffs week for so many teams. For the rest of the teams that are going home, there's another painful offseason to deal with and coaches firing and all kinds of stuff. So it's time for some of the teams and for others to soothe in, just to calm down a little bit and come with me to a magical place called 1995. It is January 29th of that day. It is Super Bowl 29. It is the Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. And we got the most bonkers game in Super Bowl history. There were 75 points in this game. This is what happens when you put Madden on easy mode and just let it rip. Like, this was bonkers. It feels like two of your friends who haven't played Madden just spam different buttons and just try out something, or two professional Maddens just like take it easy because you feel bad for one friend, so you're trying to like easing up or something. So it's that kind of game. Except this was the real game, and this was a Super Bowl game, and defense is kind of like throw out of the window. San Diego Chargers and San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers back after the Montana years of the 90s, and now this is Steve Young's team. They traded Montana away from San Francisco to be the new quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. And while he was decent in Kansas City, probably one of the decent more quarterbacks in all of Kansas City Chiefs history, Steve Young meant to take the keys to San Francisco and drive this team to their Super Bowl victory. And this was the proverbial monkey off his back. After so many years being the understudy, the unprecedented to the dominant, brilliant Montana, this was Steve Young's moment in the sun. And he took that moment and just ran with it. And just ran away from the Chargers in a highly bonkers game. Chargers 26, 49ers, well, 49. Pretty much on the nose with their name. Stan Humphries, 24 of 49, 275 yards, one touchdown, and two interceptions. Gail Gilbert came in with 3 of 6 for 30 yards and interception. Steve Young was the MVP of this Super Bowl, which is not a surprise because he was a really good quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback. Imagine you're in San Francisco and you got 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in your reel. That's a problem that many coaches will not even have at this point, except your Green Bay when you have like Favre and Rodgers a couple of years back. But I digress. Steve Young was the MVP of this Super Bowl. He went 24 of 36, 325 yards. Impressive, of course, impressive. Six touchdowns. 24 of 36, 325 yards, 6 touchdowns. He just made this game look easy. Absolutely easy. For the rushes, of course, for the other team. Nitrode Means, 13 of 33, 2.54 yards, a carry, and a touchdown. Steve Young also contributed with 5 rushes for 49 yards and 9.8 a game. Let me tell you something. If you wanted to see a wonderful, wonderful quarterback display, the Joe Montana beatdown of the Denver Broncos is your dominant quarterback play. This is another one. In fact, Steve Young and Joe Montana in those dominant Super Bowl wins combined for 11 touchdowns and no interceptions. No interceptions in those two. 11 touchdowns between these two and no interceptions. In fact, I think both Steve Young and Montana have combined for like 15 touchdowns with no interception between them. My God, like Jesus, the San Francisco team in the 90s were just on steroids. On freaking steroids. I continue. Ricky Waters, also brilliant. 15 rushes of 47 yards, 3.13 a carry, and a touchdown. William Floyd from the San Francisco 49ers, 9 carries for 32 yards and 3.56 a pop. And now for the receivers. Ronnie Harmon from the Chargers, 8 catches for 68 yards and 8.5 a pop. Mark Say, 7 catches for 75 yards and 10.171 a pop. Alfred Pupunu, 4 catches for 48 yards and 12 a pop. Tony Martin, 3 catches for 59 yards and 19.67 a pop and a touchdown. Sean Jefferson, 2 catches for 15 yards and 7.5 a touchdown. And if you thought Steve Young throwing bombs and getting touchdowns was incredible, Jerry Rice. I said Jerry. Listen, I think. Let me just see. I think the Denver Broncos Super Bowl that I did. Let me just see. It was Super Bowl 25, I guess. No, this was not the Super Bowl. I think it's Super Bowl 24. Let me just see. Super Bowl 24. I mentioned about Jerry Rice being absolutely ridiculous. I mentioned Jerry Rice being absolutely ridiculous in that Super Bowl, to the tune of 7 catches for 148 yards and 21.14 pop and 3 touchdowns. He went 3 touchdowns with 10 catches for 149 yards and 14.9 a pop. Jerry Rice, the best receiver in all of NFL by a country flipping mile. And as we go on later on, he's still going to catch bombs for a different team, of course. But my goodness of gracious, this guy was a beast. This guy was a beast in the Super Bowl. I think he could have won. I think, let's be honest, Steve Young deserved MVP for those 6 touchdowns alone. But if I were a voting committee, I would give Jerry Rice the MVP for those 3 touchdowns alone. He was incredible. He did what no other receiver can do ever since. And even then, it will be ridiculous. It will be absolutely ridiculous. William Floyd with 4 catches, 26 yards, and 6.5 a pop and a touchdown. John Taylor, 4 catches for 43 yards and 10.75 a pop. Ricky Waters, another highly incredible quarterback, 3 catches for 61 yards and 20.3 a pop and 2 touchdowns. Ricky Waters have, 180 yards of all-purpose offense and 3 touchdowns. So Ricky Waters was having bombs. Jerry Rice is having bombs. This was absolute cinema from the 49ers. Absolute cinema from the 49ers, of course. San Diego did their part, but it was like, what can you do against when you have Steve Young and Ricky Waters and Jerry Rice on their prime? In their prime. You can't do nothing. You can have 26 points, but it's not even enough. Not even enough. 26 points might win you like 12 to 13 Super Bowls back then. Not in this highly octane offense of the 90s and even in today's standard. That will never be enough. Because the defense did their part. There was defense in this game. I mean, yes, it's 75 points, but there was some defense in this game, of course. Rayleigh Johnson, 2 sacks. Junior Seau, God rest his soul, pretty much the most incredible defensive man ever and the most tragic, of course, of all circumstances in his death. But we'll salute you, and we salute you with a 10 tackles sack performance, which is incredible. Dennis Gibson, 10 tackles. Darren Gordon / Chris Mims, 5 tackles. Darren Carrington, 4 tackles. Larry Lewis Bush with a fumble recovery. For San Francisco, Eric Davis, interception, 6 tackles. Toy Cook. He cooked, by the way. Interception and 3 tackles. Deion Sanders. Now, there's a name you already know aboard. Deion Sanders, prime time as many people call it. I think he's still coaching Colorado. He still is. I'm recording this, a couple of days in advance, but I think he's still coaching Colorado. Yeah, he is. Probably the best 2-way player ever seen. Can punt the ball, can receive the ball incredibly, can do so many things defensively, have a great IQ, of course, for the game. Was a former great at Atlanta Falcons, but unfortunately, when it comes to being great and winning, neither of these two mesh. So, onwards to greener patches in San Francisco, and he was a key contributor to the San Francisco team winning the Super Bowl, and went on the following year to do that for a different team. I think we all know what that even team is, but I will let you stew in until tomorrow for that. For now, interception and 3 tackles, because this is Deion Sanders. Why not? Dennis Stubblefield with a sack and a tackle. Dennis Brown and Tim Harris with a half a sack, with Brown at 3 tackles and Harris at 1 tackle. Tim Amendola, 9 tackles. Ken Oren Jr., 6 tackles. Gary Plummer, and yes, this is a Norton Jr. that actually played for the Dallas Cowboys and winning their Super Bowl the previous year. So he is on the fence for the two pretty much best teams in the 90s and 80s, of course. Gary Plummer, 4 tackles. Brian Young, 3 tackles. So San Francisco actually needs to have some defense to try to limit the San Diego onslaught. Yes, I'm saying San Diego. It almost feels like yesterday that it was called the San Diego Chargers. Now the LA Chargers that can't even have their own fans. What a world we live in. F you, Spanos. Anyways, kicking and special teams. We got a kickoff return touchdown. In fact, we have a great kickoff performance by Andre Coleman with 8 kickoff returns for 244 yards at 30.5 per return and a 98-yard touchdown. Probably the best kickoff return touchdown in Super Bowl history. But a couple of years from now, there'll be a better one, of course. John Carney with 1 for 1 on PATs and 1 for 1 on field goals. Doug Bryan, 7 for 7 PATs and 1 for 1 field goals. I think this is probably the reason why we have the 49ers scoring 49 instead of 52, which would be weird enough already, but I digress. The yards are San Diego's 354 and 454 for San Francisco. And 3 turnovers for San Diego to none. They scored 49 points. Steve Young scored 6 touchdowns. Jerry Rice had 3 touchdown catches, and they had 0 turnovers the entire game. Absolute ballistic domination by the 49ers. Yes, the scoreline may read like a 23-point game, but I just tell you what, with the Dolphins this incredibly good, yeah, I think there's nothing you can do. And I think the Super Bowl is important for Steve Young generally because for this long, this guy has been so much the Joe Montana understudy. And now that he finally get the keys, the guy had never gotten done, of course, in many of the big games. And then when he finally did and performed so well in that one game that actually matters, and of course this is his only Super Bowl he won. But for him to leave it all on there and perform incredibly well, if you want to see the most brilliant quarterback play, Joe Montana in Super Bowl 24 comes to mind. This is another one. This is another one of those incredible performances by a San Francisco quarterback we have ever seen. And for those two to be Hall of Famers, it's something to be blessed. It's something to be incredible. That is San Francisco's 3rd Super Bowl in the last 5 years. Cementing themselves as the team of the 90s. Even though Cowboys, have like 2 Super Bowls already back to back, San Francisco saying, not done yet. Not done yet. They still have 1 more, and Steve Young was incredible. 6 touchdowns. My God, a Super Bowl record, by the way. 6 touchdowns. And he got the monkey off his back, and he cuddled that trophy like it's baby or something. And yeah, that's pretty much Super Bowl 29. A bonkers game, a bonkers performance by Steve Young and Jerry Rice, of course, and a bonkers win by the 49ers. We are 5 weeks away from Super Bowl 30, and we got plenty more of these credible Super Bowls to come in my reviews. So if you please want more Super Bowl reviews, like, comment, subscribe. I'll be on social media for coming like a couple of days, of course, from 2026 and maybe beyond, of course. But thank you for watching. Thank you for doing this review with me. Now it is time to go back to your 2026 lives. And I will see you all next time for Super Bowl 30 when we have a classic matchup with a different flavor, of course.